In the crowded noise of San Francisco, a city alive with clattering cable cars, hurried footsteps, and the low hum of conversations that never sleep, there walked a man no one noticed. Thomas blended into the rhythm of the city like a ghost in worn boots and a threadbare coat. Most people didn't see him, and those who did quickly looked away, as if his presence made them uneasy. Yet, on a cold evening brushed by the damp wind from the bay, something caught Thomas's eye that made him pause. A worn leather wallet lay on the sidewalk, half hidden under the dim glow of a flickering street lamp. Thomas knelt slowly, his bones stiff from nights spent on concrete. His heart pounded as he picked it up and felt its weight heavier than any wallet he'd held in years. Opening it, he saw crisp bills stacked beside business cards embossed with elegant gold letters, and an ID bearing the face of a man who looked successful, calm, and worlds apart from Thomas's reality. For a moment, the world felt suspended between two choices: to keep the wallet, and with it, the chance for hot meals, a bed, perhaps even a small room with a lock on the door, or to give it back. His hands trembled. Hunger whispered to him, memories of warmth teased him. But something deeper, an echo of the man he used to be, before the world turned cruel, urged him toward honesty. With a breath that tasted like regret and hope, Thomas turned and walked through the misty streets to the nearest police station. There, under the harsh fluorescent lights, he laid the wallet on the counter and slipped out before anyone could ask his name. No one knew it was Thomas who had chosen honesty over desperation. Days passed. Morning fog rolled over the bay and retreated again, like the tide carrying away old secrets. Thomas sat by the train station, his usual spot, watching the streams of people with clean coats, worried faces, and somewhere to be. Doubt began to gnaw at him. Had he been foolish? In a world that barely noticed him, did kindness mean anything at all? One afternoon, rain fell in a soft, steady curtain over the city. Thomas sat under the narrow awning, shivering, when a uniformed officer approached, holding something wrapped carefully to keep it dry. "Someone asked me to deliver this to you," the officer said, his tone gentle in a way Thomas rarely heard. With numb fingers, Thomas opened the envelope. Inside was a letter, the paper thick, the handwriting elegant yet warm. "Dear stranger, you could have kept it, no one would have blamed you. Yet, you chose honesty when no one was watching. I've spent years hoping to meet someone whose kindness endures even in the darkest times. If you're reading this, come find me at the address below. Something tells me your story was never meant to end here." At the bottom was a signature Thomas recognized from the business cards he had returned. A man whose name he had only ever seen in headlines describing charity events and generous donations. A philanthropist whose face was as familiar in the city as the skyline itself. For a moment, Thomas just sat there, the letter shaking slightly in his hands as the rain tapped a gentle rhythm around him. Part of him wanted to tear the paper, convinced it must be a cruel joke. But another part, the part that had chosen to return the wallet, whispered that maybe, just maybe, it wasn't. The next morning, Thomas washed his face in the cold water of a public restroom, ran his fingers through his tangled hair, and made the long walk to the address on the letter. It led him to a quiet street at the city's edge, where old brick buildings stood dignified against the fog. Outside one of them, a simple plaque bore the philanthropist's name. Thomas hesitated at the door, breath held tight in his chest, then stepped inside. A receptionist greeted him with a smile that reached her eyes. "He's expecting you," she said, as though this were the most natural thing in the world. She led Thomas to an office filled with warm light, books lining the walls, and the faint scent of old leather and fresh coffee. Behind the desk stood the man himself, his face the same as on the ID, only now, his eyes carried kindness and curiosity. "I've been waiting for you," he said, his voice steady, neither patronizing nor pitying. Thomas swallowed, unsure what to say. "You returned my wallet," the man continued. "You chose honesty over your own need. Most wouldn't. I'd like to return something to you. Your dignity, your hope, and perhaps a new beginning." From a drawer, the man took out a folder and slid it across the desk. Inside, Thomas saw a letter of employment for a small role at the man's community foundation, a voucher for temporary housing, and a simple promise. Help for as long as Thomas was willing to help himself. Tears welled in Thomas's eyes, the kind that come not just from relief, but from the ache of finally being seen after years of invisibility. His voice caught in his throat as he tried to speak, but words seemed too small. The man only nodded, as though he understood perfectly what couldn't be said. That evening, as Thomas stood by a window in the shelter where he'd been offered a room, he watched the city lights flicker on like a constellation reborn. In that quiet moment, he realized, sometimes, even the smallest act of honesty can echo further than we ever dare to imagine, rippling outward to bring hope not just to others, but back to ourselves. And in a city that had long forgotten his name, Thomas felt something he hadn't felt in years, the fragile, persistent beat of possibility. His story, he understood now, wasn't over. In fact, it might be just beginning. What would you have done if you were in his place? Kept the wallet or returned it? And do you believe one small act of honesty can truly change a life? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if this story moved you, subscribe for more tales that echo beyond words.